I'll just come out and say it. Animal Crossing New Horizons is one of the best games you can play on Switch, but it's been a really long time since the last major update came out, and you may have either found yourself running out of things to do or have burnt out and moved on to other games. A new Animal Crossing title isn't going to be announced anytime soon, but as New Horizons is approaching 5 years old now, I thought it would be fun to talk about the current state of Animal Crossing New Horizons and what new features and improvements should be made for the next game in the franchise, and talk about why these are so desperately needed. If you're new around here, hi, my name is Twilight. I'm a cozy gamer who is slightly obsessed with everything Animal Crossing. I make tips and tricks videos, speed builds, and go on villager hunts and discuss news and rumours in the AC world. If that's your vibe, please do consider subscribing for more videos like this where we discuss some fun things which should be present in any new Animal Crossing games. The first thing that needs to be sorted out are the villager personalities. It's not that what we have in New Horizons is bad. I think there are a good variety of personalities in the villagers which give you a rounded gameplay experience. However, the one thing that has had a major impact on the villager personalities is the developers removing some of the edge and sass the villagers had. In older games, the villagers were more critical if you were wearing an item of clothing that they didn't like, or if you ignored them for a really long time. For New Horizons, this changed, and the developers ended up dulling down the personalities after some players complained about being upset over the villagers being mean. As a result, cranky villagers became less grumpy and snooty villagers were less rude about your fashion choices. Whilst I don't think this is the wrong thing to do, I do now find that the villagers just have less interesting dialogue and don't really engage with you as a result of this change. Coupled with the dulling down of the villager personalities is the limited dialogue options that are available for villagers, and I think improving this would give the personalities we do have more substance. If you've ever paid attention to your favourite villagers' dialogue with you, you may have noticed there's very little variance, especially if you're crafting. I am forever scarred by peppy villagers crafting because the only thing they talk about is Maglev's in love. More variety and options in dialogue would keep the game fresher, and if this is tied into making the personalities feel more authentic, I think there would be more interesting conversations that you would have with villagers, and you may be more likely to talk to your villagers on a regular basis because you experience more of their personality. Another thing that I'd really like to see improved with the villagers is more of a crossover in personalities. Animal Crossing has maintained a bit of a binary when it comes to villager personalities, with certain ones being limited to specific genders, and whilst this works fine to an extent, let's be honest, not all jocks are males, and not all sisterly types are female in real life, so why should there not be more crossover in Animal Crossing? You may even know someone in real life who is sporty and is female, or is a peppy persona but is actually male. Whilst this requires some additional coding, I think adding more variety into the villagers would make for a better experience. There is some crossover in personalities to an extent, with the developers mirroring personality types into the opposite gender, but calling it something different and giving them completely different dialogue. For example, the snooty and cranky villagers have a similar personality, and their dialogue is similar, but it is still different for the different genders. But not every villager personality type shares this type of crossover, and that feels like a missed opportunity to develop better and more unique relationships with your villagers, particularly if you know that the dialogue is going to be more unique for your favourite villager, outside of changing their catchphrase and giving them a new nickname to call you. Along with this, you could get new personalities added into the different genders and play around with those. Personally, I would love to see some geeky villagers, but also play around with some shy or anxious villagers who may not say very much to begin with, but as you talk to them and get to know them, their hobbies and interests shine through and they open up to you. Having more options for gameplay and conversations like this would make villagers feel more special compared to the monotony that you experience at the moment from having limited dialogue with your villagers. Whilst we're talking about villagers, let's talk about something else which I think should be improved: how we get villagers onto our islands. This isn't too big of a problem with New Horizons, but it can still be a headache to go through the process of trying to kick off a villager, only to then find out the villager who wants to leave isn't the one you want to go. Or worse still, the villager who replaces them from the moving queue isn't who you wanted at all. What I think should be changed with this is getting some more visibility of the moving queues so that you can make a decision on whether or not you want to invite someone into your island. I understand completely why the developers want to keep it a surprise as to who's coming onto your island. It's really nice to get someone who you never expected turn up on your island, But when you're decorating islands and you're making a place that has a certain aesthetic, having the right villagers to fit into your vibes is something which may be really important to you. How I would like to see this work is in the form of an application system, something like where you speak to Isabelle and she can tell you your island rating. There may be an option to ask about moving applications, and you would then get a name of one of the villagers in your moving queue. This way, there's still the surprise element of who may want to move onto your island, but you won't know exactly which villagers are going to move onto your island. You only get told one name. This could be even limited to just revealing the name of the oldest villager in your moving queue, as no one really knows if the villager who's been in your queue the longest is always the first one to come into your island if you decide to autofill. If it was just kept to one name, I think this would be the right thing to do because I kind of like the unknown of who could take a plot, but if you want a bit more reassurance of who could be moving in as you clear down the moving queue to find every villager in the game, this may be a good option for you. If you're someone who plays a lot of Animal Crossing, then you may be fully aware that the game could be better optimized. And I'm not talking about things like increasingly long loading screens which come from working with old hardware. I'm talking about features in-game which need to be fixed. A new console would fix most of the issues we have with islands lagging and loading different parts of the game, but we all know how long the dialogue is in Animal Crossing New Horizons. And being honest, in some parts, the amount of dialogue is actually unbearable. Fair enough if you're a new player and you've never experienced Animal Crossing before, having a slightly longer dialogue screen is a good thing. But if you're a serial restarter or you decorate islands for fun and you play a lot of Animal Crossing, you have to sit through things like the lengthy Dodo dialogue from Orville to set up how to use the airport, what the terms and conditions are for playing online with friends, even how to use resident services, and any of the long dialogue that you get with starting a new island. The easiest way to combat all of these long dialogue screens is to install a feature which will allow you to skip all dialogue. The Switch holds how many hours you've played Animal Crossing on the console, so if the developers have an idea of how long you've been playing, it would be good if there was an option to skip the setup dialogue so that you don't have to waste more time working on starting a new island. And speaking of dialogue, let's quickly talk about villager hunting for a moment. I've actually timed how long it takes to go from seeing one villager on one island to then seeing a villager on another island. It takes roughly 2 minutes on average, and you know how long you spend looking at a villager in that time? About 10 seconds. Even if you spent 30 seconds looking at a villager, you would still be spending the majority of your time villager hunting, either stuck in Dodo chatter with Orville and Wilbur, or in loading screens. This is something which needs to be improved massively in the next Animal Crossing game, and being honest, I think this is why a lot of people hate villager hunting. If it is, let me know down in the comments below. It's not a quick fix to change something like this in New Horizons, and we all know the Animal Crossing developers are not going to go back and fix the Dodo dialogue, but trying to narrow down the amount of dialogue that you see at the start of the game would make a massive difference. One of the biggest things that I want to see change in a new title in the Animal Crossing franchise, though, is something that you may remember if you played New Horizons at launch, and it's something that I really hope the developers never do again with an Animal Crossing game. Locking base game features away from players and not having core features available to begin with, only to then drip feed it to you as a new feature when it actually isn't. Diving and sea creatures, Brewsters, and dream addresses were all staples in the Animal Crossing franchise which had been established, but they weren't available at launch for us to enjoy, even though data miners had already found references to these in the game's code. Players were frustrated with this because these were key features that were missing, which you had to wait for. Most were available within a few months, but Brewster didn't come in the game until we had the 2.0 update, which was over a year after the game's launch. I really hope that this never happens again and any of those established features just appear in the base game. The developers also made the really frustrating decision to lock events to the online servers. It wasn't that you needed an internet connection to play the events, but by doing this, the developers made it so that basically no one could time travel to events and play them and ruin the surprise of the event for other players. This makes sense back at the launch because a lot of players, including the developers themselves, view time travel as cheating, so they were trying to crack down on people doing this. But as a result of locking the events to the servers, you could only play the events on the actual day itself. If you had other commitments and couldn't play the event on the day, that was it. You missed it. You couldn't time travel either forwards or backwards to enjoy the fun. Fortunately, all of that has been removed, and now you can freely time travel to any event that has been hosted in Animal Crossing. But I really hope that the developers don't do this in the next game. Decorating is a pretty big deal in Animal Crossing New Horizons, and if you're someone who puts a lot of time into your islands and really enjoys decorating, having the ability to personalize your space is very important. But there are some key things with decorating that are missing in New Horizons, which need to make their way into the next game. Yes, you can finally move buildings around in New Horizons, and you have the ability to customize items for the first time in the franchise's history. However, we're still limited in how all of this works because you can't move every single building, and you can't customize buildings either. For the next game, what I would really like to see is the ability to truly customize your island. As much as having a central resident services is important, it would be great if you could move every building to wherever you would like on your island. Having looked into how the map generation works for New Horizons, I can understand why it may not be possible to move every building. After all, you need to have a central hub to be able to get 3 stars and access all of the services you need from resident services. But it would be amazing to be able to at least have a little bit more choice in what you want your island to look like, and being able to at least move buildings where you like after you achieve 3 stars. It would also mean that you're more likely to stick with an island rather than resetting your map over and over again just to get the perfect layout to help you make the stunning entrance you want. The other side of this is in the customization of buildings. It is against Nintendo's terms of service to mod your Switch, but modders have shown some amazing creativity with Animal Crossing, with some of my favourite options being recolors of every building we have in the game. It actually boggles my mind that we have the ability to customize items and the island homes, but you can't recolor any other building in the game. Out of anything in New Horizons, this is the one thing which needs to be improved on, as a lot of the time, the shops, the museum and resident services don't fit into the aesthetic you're going for on your island. So you either end up accepting it as it is, or you move the buildings to the back of the island and hide them behind cliffs because you don't want to have them on your island. It would be amazing if in the next Animal Crossing game, full customization of the buildings was the thing, that you could actually get the look you're going for on your island. Something else which could be a really good option within this is also to pick the types of buildings you want. This is something that may be a little bit harder to code, but given we were given some data mines into Animal Crossing New Horizons that showed we would be getting some additional stores, like a separate cafe building, I think this would be a better thing for us to have to then be able to personalize our islands and have the buildings and the services that we wanted on our island, rather than just being stuck with the same buildings over and over again. When I think about decorating my island, I know there's a lot of familiarity with decorating. I end up with resident services, the museum, Abel's, Nooks, and I know exactly what they're going to look like, and I can picture where they're going to be on my island and how I'm going to build them out. But I would really like the ability to have the police station run by Booker and Copper on my island and decorate that to fit into the vibes of, say, a London island. That sort of level of customization then makes you want to create an island that you actually enjoy and fits into the overall vibes you're looking for, rather than just sticking with the same tried and tested buildings on every island. And let's face it, not every island needs a campsite. It's important to have it because of getting the villagers you want onto your island, but at the same time, if you have a massive city island, you wouldn't ordinarily find a campsite in a city. So being able to choose the buildings you have, where they go, and also customize them would also be amazing, so that you can actually build out the island that you're wanting to make. Regardless of what you think about Animal Crossing New Horizons, there's a lot of reasons to like it, but it's not completely perfect and could be improved on. If you want to see some more things which should be fixed for the next Animal Crossing game, you should check out this video next, where I went through some of the things I would like to see changed and how it will improve the next title. And I'll see you over there.